Thank you. It's a great honor to have a colloquium and dialogue with the Dr. Alan Wallach. We know that he's very, not expertise, but actually is a mentor for the meditation. What is to talk about how to practice meditation to reach the joyness and calmness and reach a better state of spirit and better state of life. And next that I learned from Tzu Chi, from the Dharma Master Zheng Yan, and how altruism will be able to reach the ultimate enlightenment, as we traditionally believe that meditation is a path to awakening. And altruism is also an important path to reach the enlightenment. Okay, Dr. Wallace, will you go first?
I keep on coming back like a bad penny. The first thing I would say is there's a very profound complementarity, not tension or conflict, between these two approaches, because we need both, and they need to be profoundly interrelated, enriching each other. So I'll speak, just to get the ball rolling, I'll speak a little bit about meditation. And I think in our modern world, whether here in Taiwan or in Europe, America, anywhere, I think meditation is regarded by many people as kind of a niche interest. Some people like golf, some people like watching sports, some people like hiking, and some people like meditation. So it's kind of like, how do you say, almost like a hobby, or maybe like a Band-Aid. And that is in your ordinary day-to-day life, if you find yourself getting very often stressed out, uptight, anxious, ill at ease, then, what to do? I've heard meditation is good. Either that or a good beer, or some medication to calm you down. Well, beer doesn't solve anything, but we've known from John Kabat-Zinn's work going back to the 1980s that simple practices like mindfulness of breathing can be very helpful for reducing stress. The scientific evidence is completely clear. And maybe you practice 20 minutes, and thousands and thousands of people have found this very helpful, even if they're not religious, they're not Buddhist at all, but they don't want stress. They don't want excessive stress because it's tiring. And also, you can't work very well. And if you're really stressed out, it's hard to engage with another person and really give that person your attention if you're totally stressed out. So in that way, then meditation is a way to reduce stress, to get it back to tolerable levels, right? But if we go away from the modern West, which was where this is coming from, although the meditation itself came from India, if we go back to classical India and the language that was used for understanding and teaching meditation, of course it's Sanskrit. It's one of the most ancient languages we have on the earth. And if we go to, what's the Sanskrit term? Because I know some Sanskrit, I'm quite fluent in Tibetan, but what did it initially mean? The Sanskrit term that we translate as meditation. There's one term, very simple, it's bhavana. Bhavana. And anybody who reads that Sanskrit, meditation. But what does the word actually mean, bhavana? And what it literally means is to cultivate. As a farmer cultivates a field, somebody cultivates a garden, and then you cultivate, and then you get some nice fruit, or you get flowers, or you get a field of wheat. But not if you don't cultivate it. If you just throw some seeds out there, probably birds will come and eat it up. If there's no moisture, no fertilizer, no tilled soil, they may just rot, right? So if you want a good harvest, whether it's a fruit or flowers or wheat, grain, trees, apple trees and so forth, you need to tend to them. You need to take care of them. You need to cultivate them. And as you invest the cultivation in the field, in the seeds, in the trees, in the plants, then as you invest, as you cultivate, then you get to reap the fruit. It's very straightforward, yeah? It's a very strong analogy. So a mind that is uncultivated is like a field that is uncultivated. It has a lot of potential, but not much of that manifests. Right? You may have great, as I was just mentioning to Dr. Herr, one may have a natural born talent for music, like an Amadeus or Beethoven or Bach. They came in with tremendous momentum. They're gifted, right? But if any of these three individuals never had any piano lessons, if Mozart's father was a farmer and he said, Amadeus, stop that and get back and get to work, he would never become a brilliant musician, right? It has to be cultivated and nurtured. Now this raises so then if meditation is cultivation, but it's not cultivating a field, it's not really primarily cultivating your body, although that can be done with Qigong, Tai Chi, yoga. These are all very meditative practices. So you are cultivating the body, especially by way of Qi, especially by way of prana. So that is a body-mind cultivation. And I think anyone who knows, which I don't know much, Qigong or Tai Chi, if you're not mindful, if you're just doing some mindless exercise, that's not Qigong, correct? That's not the practice. It has to be mindful, totally saturated by a mindful presence. And I have no experience in Qigong or this, but I have in some of yoga. I have some training from Iyengar. And so mindfulness, being very mindfully present in all of your asanas is absolutely crucial. Otherwise, you're not doing the practice. You're just doing stretching, right? But if meditation means cultivation, and primarily it is cultivating the mind, then we can ask, which is a question that I know is so prominent in Tzu Chi, what is education for? From kindergarten through high school, college, postdoctoral work. What's education for? Is it just to make a living? Just to get money? Is that it? And it can be, education can be utterly utilitarian, as if you're programming robots. Can be. But that's not really the richest meaning of education, is it? Because it has nothing to do with virtue, nothing to do with ethics, nothing to do with happiness. You may be very well trained to be a computer technician and be very expert and be totally miserable. Or you may be trained in economics and get a job as a stockbroker or a money manager and making lots and lots of money and finding your whole life is utterly meaningless. Like, what's the point? I'll make a lot of money, then I get old and I'll die and that money will go to somebody else. What was the point? If that's it, that's what education is for, to make some money and then lose it? Because this is the thing about death. Whatever you've acquired, and this is deep Buddhist truth, which means it's simply a truth. The Buddhist truth is whatever you acquire, you will lose. Even your own body, even your own mind, let alone wealth, reputation, power, family. You have a family, then you don't have a family because you're dead. And people going through the bardo, they don't go with their family. It's a solo flight. So what is education for? It's cultivation, isn't it? But is it just cultivating analytical skills and skills that you can make money, make a living, and so forth? Or should education be something more? Right? Because education is cultivation. It's cultivating your mind, acquiring knowledge and skills, developing analytical abilities, memory, imagination, creativity. These are all expressions of cultivation, right? And some people, of course, are more gifted than others. There are gifted students and not so gifted students. Gifted piano players and not so gifted. But even if you're not very gifted, you can go beyond chopsticks. Anybody can go beyond that, right? And so whether you're gifted or not, you just, as you say in poker, play the hand that you got. If you're gifted, wonderful, then you'll come out quite excellent. But even if you're not gifted, Education is never a waste of time. And if education is never a waste of time, meditation is never a waste of time. Now we think in this modern world, which is very materialistic, very reductionistic, that meditation is one thing. And nowadays many people think, oh, you mean mindfulness. You mean mindfulness, yeah, that's meditation, right? But in Buddhism, classical Buddhism, whether it's the Buddha's own teachings or Indian Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, mindfulness is not a meditation. Mindfulness is not a meditation. Mindfulness means to bear in mind without forgetting. And actually, among European languages, as far as I know, English is the only language that has a really good translation for the Sanskrit term that we translate as mindfulness. It's smriti. But smriti is not non-judgmental awareness. That can be very useful, no question. Very useful, reducing stress. But that's not the meaning of mindfulness in Buddhism. Mindfulness is one of 51 mental factors. And mindfulness means to bear in mind. Now, the English term actually turns out to be extremely good. If the parents have visitors coming over, and they tell their children, we have some very important guests coming over this evening, I want you children now remember, mind your manners. Does that mean just remember it? No, that remember it and apply it. When the guests come, you say, hello, greetings, nice to meet you. But mind your manners means not non-judgmental awareness. It means remember what your manners are and then apply them when the guests come. That's minding your manners, right? Mind your head. If you're going to an English bus, mind your head. Or I heard on the train, mind the gap. Are they saying be non-judgmentally aware of the gap? I don't think so. It means be aware. You don't want to fall into that. It would be painful. Mind what I say. Mind what I say. Which means bear it in mind. Don't forget it. And the adjective is mind. The adjective is mind as a verb. That's the verb, mind, and then the adjective is mindful, and the noun is mindfulness. That is all coming from the verb to mind, and that's the meaning of mindfulness in Buddhism. Now, mindfulness is a quality we all have. As the Buddha himself said, mindfulness is remembering, bearing in mind. Can you remember your address? Can you remember who your parents are? Can you remember things that you've learned in school? And that's also mindfulness. It's bearing in mind, which is the opposite of forgetting or becoming distracted. And so mindfulness is a mental factor, but like attention, like introspection, where you're monitoring your own mental processes, and like samadhi, which means concentration, but it means the unification of the mind. Just the opposite of being fragmented, opposite of multitasking, opposite of being distracted and scrambled. But a mind is then composed. And when you give, and this is now coming to compassion, your mind is composed. That's the meaning of samadhi. Samadhi. Totally composed, totally unified. Samadhi. You're placing your attention and it's totally unified. That's samadhi. And you cultivate it by way of mindfulness and introspection and attention. And these are faculties of the mind that can be trained. Some things can't be trained. You can't get taller. You can't get shorter. You can't, apart from adding things to your hair, you can't make your hair change color by itself. But these are malleable, trainable mental processes. And this is one element of meditation, one genre of meditation, to be simultaneously cultivating mindfulness, bearing in mind without forgetting, attention, to be able to focus attention and sustain the attention. There's no education if children can't sustain attention to what the teacher is teaching them. If the child is there with ADHD and just scrambled and then dull and scrambled, then even if you have a world-class teacher, the child will learn nothing. It's like serving somebody some tea and the person goes, you don't come in. You can't get in. And if the mind is distracted or dull, it can't come in. You can have the best teacher in the world and you will not learn from that person. So we're coming now close to compassion. And one genre of meditation is developing attention, mindfulness, introspection, so that whatever you do it fully, fully. Now, one of my intellectual heroes from the West, most of them are from the East, but one of them from the West is William James, one of the great pioneers of Western psychology. And he was naturally gifted for introspection, there's no question. Quite brilliant, really. But he made a comment about attention that I've memorized. It's part of, it's in my DNA, I think, by now. He said, for the moment, what we attend to is reality. That's a psychological fact. If I don't attend to something, it doesn't really disappear. If I blink, the moon doesn't disappear. It would really screw up the tides. The tides would all go crazy if the moon is gone, and then open it, oh, the moon is back. Okay, the tides start flowing again. So Dr. Shen was making a very profound point. But if everybody on Earth closed their eyes, the moon won't disappear, right? That doesn't mean, so that's a whole conversation we can't go into right now. But it's very interesting, that's for sure. But something doesn't go away simply by ignoring it. Global climate change doesn't go away if we just don't pay attention, and I'm sure it's going to solve itself. Well, no, it won't. No, it won't. For the moment, what we attend to is reality, psychologically. And if we don't pay attention to something, then for us, it's not real. Now, how does this relate to compassion? Now, one of my heroes is Dharma Master Ching Yen. I've only learned about her quite recently, but she has become a hero to me. That when she was only 23 years old, she saw this woman who came to the hospital. She couldn't pay. They had to take her back. Well, many people would say, but that's her problem. She's not my family. That's her problem. I hope good luck. Good luck. And just, good luck. But that's your family's problem. I have my family. You have yours. So good luck. Many people would respond that way. They're not giving her their attention, and therefore her problem is not so real. Whereas Dharma Master Ching Yen, that person became the center of attention. Her heart came out. This woman's suffering was Dharma Master Ching Yen's suffering. It was real because she was attending to it. What we don't attend to, we don't care about. It's not very real for us. So already right here is a person, I think we can safely say, Dharma Master Ching Yen, naturally gifted for compassion. She didn't have 20, 30, 40 years of meditation on compassion before then. She brought this with her, I think, as a great bodhisattva. She's probably been a bodhisattva in many lifetimes. I don't think it's genetics. But this is where there is this convergence between the meditative cultivation of compassion, where you withdraw for a while, and in solitude, in silence, you develop your attention. And then, for example, if you're meditatively cultivating loving kindness, which is not an emotion, it's an aspiration, and you bring in different individuals to mind, a loved one, maybe a person across the street that doesn't mean a whole lot to you, not much connection, or maybe somebody who doesn't like you, or somebody who has very disagreeable qualities. But one by one, the agreeable person, the disagreeable person, the neutral person, you bring each one to mind, each one representing so many other people. Many people are kind and loving, so that it's easy to have loving kindness for them. Many people are just strangers to you, but they're not strangers to everybody. Nobody's a stranger to, their parents unless they, were abandoned. And then even people are very disagreeable. Probably somebody loves them, or at least they love themselves. And whether they are worthy of our love is not, or should not be, dependent on how they behave. That we love nice people, but we don't love those nasty people. And those people who are just really indifferent, then we just don't pay attention. Then this is the opposite of Dharma. So in the meditative cultivation of loving kindness, in solitude, you temporarily step back from a really engaged way of life, but you bring these people to mind, and you know the mental images are not people, but they are referring to people who are as real as you and me. They're just not here now. But you bring them to mind, and you look through the veils of how pleasant their behavior is, how pleasant they may look, how virtuous they may look through that veil and see a person just like yourself. There are people who are very disagreeable. They may be even unpleasant to look at. Their behavior may be very disagreeable, may be terrible. But look through that veil, these outer appearances, an unpleasant appearance. And who's there? Somebody just like you. Every day, every morning they wake up and they want to be happy. Every night they go to sleep, they want to be happy. Well, whether you're a pleasant person or unpleasant, it's the same. And whether you know them or you don't know them, the indifferent person, it doesn't make any difference. That you don't know this person, one of the major themes of Buddha Dharma is friends become strangers, strangers become enemies, enemies become strangers, strangers become dearest friends, all in change. Nobody is intrinsically a friend. Nobody's intrinsically an enemy. Nobody's intrinsically a stranger, because it's always changing. We're changing. They're changing. So friend becomes a stranger, stranger becomes, and so forth and so on. But what's constant is every one of these people wants to be happy. Wants to be happy, just like we do. So in solitude, in meditation, one brings to mind people like that. And seeing through the veil of pleasant, unpleasant, and indifferent, through the veil is a person just like yourself. And if you really want happiness for yourself, then you must want happiness for the other. The Buddha himself said, one who loves himself will never harm another. If you really love yourself, and you know the interdependence between yourself and others, harming another person is like harming yourself. It makes no sense. So, in fact, you can start loving kindness by cultivating to yourself. Now, years ago, 1990, we had a Mind and Life meeting. Maybe I'm going on too long. Okay. In 1990, we had a Mind and Life Institute meeting with His Holiness Dalai Lama. And it was on healing emotions. Healing emotions. Very meaningful. It's 5 days, 5 hours every day. And one of the people invited to this 5-day meeting with the Dalai Lama was a very well-known Vipassana teacher named Sharon Salzberg. Anybody who knows Vipassana, you know, she's one of Joseph Goldstein, Jack Kornfield. She's very well-known. And she teaches loving kindness. She's very good. But when she was giving her presentation to the Dalai Lama, she said, in our modern world, a lot of people don't even love themselves. In our modern world, Eurocentric world especially, they don't love themselves. They have low self-esteem, self-hatred, lack of self-worth, feeling they're not worthy to find happiness, they're not worthy of other people's love, and there's actually self-hatred. And I was one of the two interpreters for this meeting, so I'm interpreting this. And with the Dalai Lama, he'd never heard this term, self-hatred. In Tibetan, it's ridiculous. You translate that into Tibetan, it's crazy. And so, self-hatred. He said, how can you hate yourself? If you hate yourself, you won't eat. You won't go to bed. You won't have dessert. How can you hate yourself? I don't understand. That's not possible. Because he'd never heard of this before, let alone low self-esteem, self-loathing, etc. It wasn't part of his vocabulary. And so, I don't know what you're talking about. It was something he'd never experienced. And then there were a number of monks in the kind of audience listening in, Tibetan monks. And he turned to these Tibetan monks, traditional monks, and he said, any of you know what this is about? Self-hatred, self-loathing? And they go, none of them knew what she's talking about. And yet anybody who's raised in the modern world, including in Taipei, or Buenos Aires, or Berlin, or Germany, or England, we all know what low self-esteem is, don't we? We know what self-hatred is. But he and his culture, they didn't even know what this means. And so then she had to explain, and once again I'm interpreting, because this is a word that he didn't know what he's talking about. But she's a very smart lady, and then she explained to him, well, this is a big problem in our modern world, Eurocentric world, of people just lacking self-worth and feeling they're not worthy of love. They're not good enough. Maybe their parents told them they're not good enough. Maybe their boss told them. Maybe they told themselves. And so after maybe 15 minutes of explanation, His Holiness said, oh, okay, that's very sad. I don't know exactly what he said, but he had to have a seminar on self-hatred because it makes no sense. And if you hate yourself, who is the hater and who is the hated? How many people are there in here? You know, if you hate yourself, does the hater hate himself, or is it hating someone inside who's your other self? How many selves are there? So this is something that's peculiar, and I think it's Eurocentric in its origin. But maybe this is why the Buddha himself and Buddhaghosa, the great Theravada master, said, if you're going to cultivate loving kindness, start with yourself. And see that whatever your behavior is, whatever your appearance is, whatever your qualities are, whoever you are, right now, you're already worthy of loving kindness. And you should love yourself. Not in a selfish way, but knowing this person wants to find happiness, is worthy of finding happiness. And from a Buddhist perspective, this person has to Tathagata Garbha, Buddha nature, and therefore you have the capacity for happiness. So now I'll round up. This was a long talk. But we see the intersection. You cultivate loving kindness for yourself and see, well, I'm a flawed human being. Who isn't, you know? And I have some bad habits, and then occasionally I engage in very unvirtuous behavior. But I don't want to. I want to be happy. I will do whatever I can to bring about the causes of happiness. And this is loving kindness. Whoever you're directing your attention to, not only may you find happiness, but the causes of happiness. And if you've been cultivating this, and now I'm coming to a close, in solitude, in the simplicity of solitude, where all your neighbors are your thoughts, in your images, in your memories and imaginations. Those are your neighbors, right? Because nobody else is around. If in solitude you've been cultivating that despite my flaws, inadequacies, sometimes my errors, sometimes I've done bad things, this person, I wish made this person find happiness and the causes of happiness. And then sooner or later you come out of solitude. You re-engage with the people around you. You become socially engaged. And you look around and say, but you're just like me. And oh, you're just like me. And this disagreeable over person here, I've been disagreeable too. And I'm like him. And this person's quite boring. But I've been boring too. And you see, everybody's like yourself. At core, disagreeable, agreeable, indifferent. I've been all three. Who hasn't? But if you can be loving and kind to yourself in all of these manifestations, and then you people see all these people around you and say, but you're all like me, then you can have loving kindness that's not conditional on other people's behavior. If you're pleasant, I'll love you. But if you're unpleasant, go away. Or if you're boring, go away. You're boring. No. And so if you cultivate this in solitude and then you come out, you are primed, you're prepared, you're poised when you're attending to those around you, and you give them your full attention and they become real for you. The other person's joys, their sorrows, their mental afflictions, their hopes and fears, all of this becomes real. And coming real, when you attend to them, engage with them, loving kindness, compassion arises spontaneously. Because it's real. Okay, that's the beginning.
Thank you. I'd love to introduce, still not working. Yeah, good. Okay, here we are. Listen, no. No.
This one was working.
Yeah, it doesn't not working. Yes, no. Hello. Okay, I'm going to introduce how the mindfulness through altruism to reach the mindfulness. According to Dr. Wallace, has been introduced that mindfulness means attention. And I say attention will bring caring. And caring must put in action. Through altruistic action, we join others' life. We join the essential being. We join the universe and become one. That's what we call ultimate awakening. That's what we call nirvana. So I start from the conversation. It just Ted suggests I dialogue with Dr. Wallace. I did not prepare, but actually I've been prepared this for many, many years, right? And I started the conversation through my personal story. I began to practice meditation at the age about 14. No one taught me. And I have a fault in my leg, and I meditated around 1 hour constantly, not every day, but in a very frequent way. And I never think that I'm Buddhist until I read the Dr. Suzuki from Japanese Zen master at the college. Through Eric Fromm, the psychiatrist, a very great psychologist, psychologist, analysis, and from Freud, New Freud. And through Eric Fromm, I read the book of Dr. Suzuki and also the Feng Dongmei, as great philosopher in the modern Chinese. His great vehicle Buddhism and Huayan Buddhism. So I gave up my meditation when I joined Tzu Chi intentionally. Master once shared her idea to me, so I started meditation. But when I was studying in the USA, I was at the USC for my master degree. One of my good friends, actually he is like a 24 years older than me. He is a professor. And a Chinese professor, we good friend, and he wanted to learn meditation. So he invited me to join the class. Actually, he's a lay person, a teacher, but she practiced Tibetan Buddhism. So I attend her classes for a month. I meditate every day. So one day, when I was driving to my school, USC, I suddenly fell into a state of situation, a spirit that I feel myself and the boundary and the surrounding, the boundary from myself and the surrounding all vanished. It sort of fell into a very calmly state, stillness state. It never happened before. It's very, very strong and a very, very, strange feeling that I feel myself as being no longer myself. It sort of meld into the whole universe. I'm still driving, but I feel that I'm not myself anymore. And I reached that state of extreme calmness. And I don't know how long it took, but when I come to the reality, what is the state of mind at the moment? So that's the first experience I have reached that kind of state, feeling that you are no longer yourself. You belong to the whole universe, and the boundary between self and others, self and universe has just gone. That's first experiences. And 2002, I gave up my career as anchorman, and I joined Tzu Chi. And Master Zheng Ye asked me to conduct interview with the bone marrow transplantation expertise in the state, worldwide. So I produced a documentary mainly on bone marrow transplantation. I interviewed with the doctor who invented the bone marrow transplantation, Edward Thomas. He won Nobel Prize in 1990 due to the invention of bone marrow transplantation. I interviewed a very compassionate doctor try to solve the patient's problem. I interviewed other volunteers who want to help the others. And with the patient's family, when the patient passed away, they don't give up. They organize a bone marrow bank to helping the others. So all I witness, all I experiences is compassion and love. And this trip is very long, about a couple months. At the end of my journey is in Germany, in Ulm, which is located in 2 hours from Munich. The Ulm is the location of a Germany bone marrow bank. I live in a friend's house. I get up early and interview and production very late. One night, wanted to take a break. I want to make a note for the next day. And all of a sudden, a state of calmness and joyness emerged into my spirit. I feel the boundary of self and universe vanished, and full of joyness. I was wondering, where come the state of spirit? I don't know how long it took, but when I returned to the reality again, I remind the Master Huineng, the great Zen master in China, and he said, you have to be stillness in action. Yes, I reached the state of stillness through the action of compassion and love, because I've been experiencing so many love and so many compassion worldwide. And that brings me to reach the state of calmness and joyfulness. So at that point, I understood that meditation can reach the state of calmness, and compassion and altruism also can reach the state of calmness. I was so fortunate to underwent these two very different experiences. One through meditation to reach the state of calmness, one through compassion and altruism to reach the state of calmness. So I came to understand that altruism eventually brings to ultimate enlightenment. And that's my PhD dissertation, and introduced how Master Cheng Yen bring our volunteers and disciples to reach some kind of awakening and enlightenment through altruism. We mentioned about Eightfold Path, right? We normally believe that, as you're saying, is a wrong perception, believe that meditation equal to mindfulness. It actually is not. The Eightfold Path told us you have to be the right view of life, that you want to be more altruistic as your life goal. You want to help people as your life goal. That's the view of life. So the first rule is positive view of life. In order to reach the kind of view of life, what kind of virtue you have to comply? So it's a positive value or virtue, 正思维. And then thirdly, you got to listen to the right word, right Dharma. 正语 being right Dharma, positive Dharma. You have to listen to the right Dharma and share good Dharma to the others. So we call positive, speech or positive verbal. And then 正业, you have to positive livelihood, your business, your relationship must be positive. So you will have a positive life. Your lifestyle will be positive, righteous. And then you have a positive or righteous diligence. Because you want to cultivate yourself. You conquer a lot of inner weakness, a lot of external difficulties. You have the righteous diligence. So reach the positive mind called mindfulness. And reach the righteous calmness. So before you reach the mindfulness, you got a 6 step. It must be, be altruistic. You must be living in the right livelihood, and it must be right diligence. So there's so many work to do. In the meditation, can I reach the mindfulness? You got to be altruistic, got to be compassionate in your action. So can you reach the mindfulness, eventually reach the calmness. So I think this is the way to reach the ultimate enlightenment and awakening through altruism, not only through meditation alone. Meditation is the right way, right path to reach that kind of state of enlightenment. But altruism provides an alternative path to that nirvana. What is called nirvana? Nirvana means purity, free from greed and desire, free from temptation, free from hatred, and wisdom, right? Our heads practice their meditation. They're free from anger, desire, lust, but they lack of adequate wisdom to inspire sensual being. But Bodhisattva path enable you to learn wisdom through helping others. And the Buddha had both purity, inner purity, and wisdom to enlighten all sensual beings. So nirvana meaning purity and wisdom. Not only purity, but wisdom. How to engage people, how to support people. And once you support people, you accumulate your wisdom and also inspire your inner compassion, inspire your purity, inspire your selfless. So by helping others, you can accumulate purity and wisdom. And that's the way to reach the ultimate enlightenment. The more people you help, the more compassion you cultivate, the more wisdom you will gain from this kind of helping others. So that's why I mentioned the Tzu Chi path is through altruism to ultimate enlightenment. That's the absolute path for a Buddhist practitioner to follow and to practice. I have many examples. Dr. Wallace shared the same concept that actually Buddhist philosophy and the practice cross the boundary of religion. There was one, survival in tsunami in Sri Lanka back to 2004. At the time, tsunami ruined the whole village. And one guy called Abdullah, he lost his whole family, wife and 4 children. So he did not want to talk, he did not want to eat, he did not want to sleep. He was just like stunned. And our volunteer went to see him and visit him because the villagers, his friend, were worried about his situation. He's being weak. He did not talk and eat and sleep. Our volunteer accompanied with him. Eventually, there's no way that can really bring him back to the reality. So the gentleman or our volunteers sent a song to the Abdullah. Because a man sent a song to another man is odd. So he left. And that the way he bring the rice soup to the Abdullah. And he had a sip and crying and crying. And next day, we don't really try to comfort him, but we invite him to be a volunteer as a translator in a free clinic. Days later, he can laugh, he can talk. You may lose someone you love, but you never lost the capability to love. That's the key form. That's we innate compassion, innate mercy. The Buddha told us everybody got innate and essential love and compassion. But only through giving, we cultivate, we discover, oh, yes, I have an innate compassion and love, and never vanished. Even our beloved one has gone. Our love still in our spirit. So another case in Sichuan earthquake, a very young mother lost her daughter. Again, she didn't want to eat, she didn't want to talk, but her daughter would love to help others, according to her letter to her daughters. Our volunteers say, your daughter loved to helping others. Now she's gone. Were you, on behalf of her, to help others, to cook hot meal to the villagers? And she said yes. Days later, our TV station interview with her, she can laugh, she can smile, she can talk. Again, we might lose someone we love, but we never lost the ability to love. That's innate compassion and wisdom that Buddha taught us we have. Unless we give into others, we forget that we have ability to love and to be compassionate and altruism. So there are so many cases I found that altruism can reach spiritual healing and reach the spiritual transcendence. So that's why we initiate the research on how altruism, especially Buddhist altruism, can reach the state of calmness, purity, and transcendence. So we are going to work with Harvard Divinity School every year. Next year will be in March. 10 volunteers and researchers will go to Harvard, and they will invite those scholars join together to write the story and case study about Tzu Chi, how the altruism helping the volunteer as well as survival to transcend their spirit, to reach the spiritual healing. So that's this true empirical cases we've been a witness for many decades. And I think Bodhisattva not only love ourselves, but Bodhisattva put other first, yourself second. That's follow the Master Cheng Yen's model. When she began to do the charity, she visited a very senior old man, 80 years old, got a multi-organ dysfunction, especially heart attack, and frequently heart disease and heart problems. And there is one kind of medicine at the time very important for the heart problems or heart failure patients, called rescue heart, 救心, rescue heart. The medicine's name, 救心, is Japanese medicine. And the elderly people, the recipient told the Master Cheng Yen, my heart, has problem. If there's medicine called rescue heart, will be very helpful. But at the time, it's very, very expensive, very hard to purchase. And Master Cheng Yen also suffered in that kind of heart problem at the time. And when she returned to her boat, her mother have someone to brought a medicine called rescue heart to Master herself. And when she received the medicine, she immediately called our volunteers that live in Taidong, in the south of Hualien, told him that I got a medicine called rescue heart. Please bring this medicine to the elder people who need that medicine. She needed it. That's the rescue life. Once you heart problem, heart attack, you to the pain medicine and you could be safe. But that kind of life-saving medicine, she needed, but she put it and gave it to the others first. So that's Bodhisattva path. Put others first. Put yourself second. So in the September 21st, when the earthquake happened, hit thousands of houses. Our volunteers' house also ruined. But instead of cleaning up their own house, they helping their neighbor first. They follow the Master Cheng Yen's model and paradigm. Put others first, put yourself second. Because yourself is also, others, also yourself. Love others is love yourself. So that's the Bodhisattva path. So that's the altruism, ideal and the practice. Put others first. Treat others as yourself. There's no difference between yourself and others because we are one. According to interdependent origination, everything is one. Everything is interconnected. So put others first and you second. Love others equal to love yourself. So by following this practice and the philosophy, you'll be able to engage others' life, support others' life, support the whole sensual being, love the whole sensual being, even material life. Master say you're talking about environment problem. Master have one statement called cherish material life. Material convey life. So in the early age, the piece of paper, she wrote 6 times. Pencil, blue pen and a red pen, and turn over, wrote it again. Cherish material life, prolong material life, material convey life. If we really cherish material life, we want to follow the capitalism's ideal. mass production, mass consumption, and mass wasting. So our greed consume, exploit the planet. The scarcity resources, but our greed is infinite. That's the problem. If you cherish material as life, we won't do that. We won't follow the doctrines of capitalism, mass production, mass consumption, and mass wasting. So it's all, ideal altruism toward human being, toward all essential being. Put others first. Put yourself second. Be others equal to yourself, because we are in one. That's the philosophy Buddha taught us, based on the rule of interdependent origination. But still, we have not yet find the formula of altruism. How altruism can reach enlightenment. What is the different stage of altruism that eventually reach enlightenment? We have not yet established. So we need more research on that. Unlike the meditation, they have a lot of abundant experiences, abundant, step to reach the enlightenment. But altruism is still very new. It's a new path. It's actually originated from Buddha. Buddha is a very altruistic mind, right? And he foresees that himself and the whole universe as one. It's one, so altruism is the core of this philosophy and practices. But still, there's emphasis on altruism, more emphasis on meditation. So Buddhism now have to cultivate a new path, how to reach altruism, how altruism reach the state of ultimate enlightenment. We still need more research, accumulate more cases, and create a model, create a formula. How can we follow the practice of altruism and reach the nirvana, reach the purity and wisdom of ultimate enlightenment? Okay, that's my talk. Thank you. So, Ted, our conversation is end here, or will you have any discussion from the floor?
Well, we were originally planning for this session to end at 3:20 p.m., which is half a minute from now. 30 seconds. But if you want to make any concluding remarks, I think it would be good to close the conversation rather than have anything hanging in your minds.
What is, and Tzu Chi is on the same path, and attention on every moment, carry all beings in every moment, and compassionate in every moment, and try to no differentiate yourself from all surrounding and all beings, and in that reach the enlightenment and calmness. So I think it's a very, very precious opportunity that Dr. Alan Wallace shared his long experiences of meditation and mindfulness practices. I think we got more to learn from him, and would like to collaborate with him, to developing the mindfulness through meditation and through altruism. Thank you.
Did you want to respond? Our time is flexible. Our time is flexible.
I believe we've also heard that time is relative.
Space also relative.
Yes, yes.
I am also relative.
Yeah. Which means we're all relatives, which means we're all of the same family. Let's just come back very briefly. It's been a long day, and I'm still supposed to give one more talk today, if you don't all fall asleep. If you fall asleep, I wish you very happy dreams. Yeah. But the theme of complementarity once again, and that is if one witnesses the decades of service that Dhamma Master Ching Yen and her many volunteers and employees in Tzu Chi And one is inspired by that. This is my path. This is completely satisfying. This is what I was always looking for. This is completely fulfilling. Then that's your path. Right? And you will cultivate your mind, which everybody needs to do, but you'll cultivate your mind in action. And we heard this phrase, which I'm very familiar with, that Dr. Hare mentioned to us, citing the Chinese meditation master, stillness in the midst of motion. Yeah? It's a very profound point. And so I'll end on this note about meditation, but in terms of completely complementary. And that is one type of meditation I've been practicing since 1976, teaching for maybe 40 years. It's not just calming the mind, because sometimes the mind needs to be active. If you're planning, there's an earthquake, and people are really suffering and their houses have collapsed, it's not a time to just release all thoughts and be here now. What can be done? What is the strategy? Who do we need to call? What is needed? So you need to have your mind in action and not just being very peaceful, right? So meditation is often thought, again, in our, if I may say, contemplatively primitive world nowadays, so heavily afflicted by materialism, that a very superficial understanding of meditation can come up, that it just means calming the mind. Well, we calm the mind every time we fall asleep. What's the big deal? You know, every time you fall deep asleep, your mind is calm, but you don't wake up more enlightened just by getting a good night's sleep. You don't wake up being more compassionate because you got a good night's sleep. You're just ready to repeat yesterday all over again. Yeah. And so one type of meditation that I think is very subtle but also very transformative, meaningful, and so resonant with what we've heard from Dr. Hare is cultivating an inner stillness of awareness. Still, not like a point in space, but still like space itself. A point in space can move from here to there. And it moves. Moves in another direction. But however much you blow, space never moves. And awareness is coextensive with space. Awareness saturates space. Now we've heard from Ted, and he was at least implicitly citing one of the most brilliant theoretical physicists alive today. And I'm sure you know of him. Nima Akhati Ahmed, born in Iran, lived in Canada, and then American. He's an Iranian, Canadian, American, brilliant, world-class theoretical physicist at the Institute for Advanced Study. So there's no higher place to go than that. That's where Einstein was. And I've heard a lecture of his that he gave before an audience of 300 physicists. And the gist of what he said in one lecture was, we have an enormous amount of evidence, independent streams of evidence, all pointing to one conclusion. Space and time are not objectively real. They do not exist in the fabric of the universe. They're not inherently, objectively real. There's no space out there. There's no time out there from its own side. Now, Nagarjuna said the same thing 2,000 years ago, that space and time are empty of inherent nature. But this is a physicist. So I know a little bit about him. I don't think he's a religious man, but he's an outstanding physicist. But then he said, if this is true, there's no objective space and time, then what is physics about? Because from the time of Galileo, physics was always about an existing objective physical world out there of matter and force, matter and energy, space and time. They're really there, and science is to represent what's already out there. But what if there's no out there? Then what is physics about now? And he said, this is a serious problem. Right? How does this all relate? If there's no space and time out there, then there are no people out there that exist independently of us. There's no place for them. If there's no objective space, you're not really over there in some other space. So coming back to the meditation, then I need to wrap up. I need to talk again in 15 minutes. To cultivate a type of awareness, rest in a type of awareness, effortlessly, rest, and a time of awareness that is as still as space. Not physical space, it doesn't exist, but the space of awareness. Rest in that space, and in the midst of that space, resting in that stillness, observe the comings and goings of thoughts and memories, hopes and fears, joys and sorrows, virtuous and non-virtuous mental events, arising, passing, rising, passing, rising, passing. That while they're coming and going, you remain still. So you don't try to block the thoughts. You don't, like a hitchhiker, catch a ride on the thoughts and travel. You don't try to modify. You don't think the thoughts by appropriating them. And you don't try to accomplish anything. Space doesn't try to accomplish anything. Resting in that stillness in the midst of the movements of the mind can be enormously liberating. And then you come off the cushion. Sooner or later, whoever you are, if you're meditating, you have to get off the cushion. If you're in retreat, as I have been for the last 2 years, sooner or later you get an invitation that's so good you can't pass it up. And then you travel 16 hours in airplanes, and then you come here for 4 days, and then you go back into solitude again. But it was too good to pass up. All the other invitations I had for 2 years, I passed up. Better to stay in solitude, stay in silence. But when you come off the cushion, out of meditation, and now you're in the midst of people, and they're coming and going, and the news is coming and going, everything's coming and going, everything movement. But in the midst of that, if you can have that stillness and not be caught up and collapsed into the events of the moment, but not withdrawn, not dissociated, not uncaring, but it's that very stillness that leaves your heart wide open, that whatever comes up, and you witness other people suffering, and it's your suffering. You see others experiencing joy, and you feel empathy in their joy. You feel agreeable and disagreeable people, but you rest in impartiality, of not attached to the pleasant and averse toward the unpleasant. That stillness in the midst of motion, you can cultivate in solitude, in meditation, and as soon as you come out, you rest in that ongoing stillness, because there's really no space to pass through. There's no time to pass through. But you come off the cushion and you maintain that stillness, which is filled with compassion. And out of that stillness spontaneously arise a sense of caring, of loving kindness, of compassion, and then you become a true follower of Tzu Chi.
Okay. Yes, when we talk about the emptiness, Kong, it's not equal to nothingness. As Master Huineng saying that the whole cosmos is empty, so it can accommodate sun, moon, or planets. In our true nature, will be just like that. So real emptiness is can accommodate all sensual being, embrace all sensual being, eventually join all sensual being, become one. So that's all compassion, that's all mindfulness or altruism about. And I think that's just very crucial for learning the Buddhist philosophy, not to really stick on pure or absolute emptiness, not to stick on the impermanent word. And Master Cheng Yen, from his ideal, of course, including the Yogacara ideal, is that our sixth sensory, eye, smell, mouth, body, ear, this impermanent sensory can bring ourselves into the permanent wisdom. Our eyes see sensual beings suffering. We smell the suffering of sensual beings. We hear their torture. We speak good word. All six sensory look like impermanent, look like more secular. But this is a very good vehicle for us to reach the enlightenment, can transform six sensory to the ultimate awakening. So we don't abandon the space, we don't abandon the time. All the relative existence, no matter it's time, space, or secular world, all contribute to our enlightenment. Like our sixth sensory, it's impermanent, right? It's like kind of, worrisome. But Master Cheng Yen say, employ those six sensory, transform to purity, transform to compassion and altruism. We see people suffering. We hear their torture. We smell what they need or their stink. We speak good word. Our body can save sensual pain. So it transforms all the impermanent existence onto the permanent wisdom and state awakening. So through this kind of altruism, the secular and divinity has no boundary. Impermanent and permanent has no boundary. And relative and absolute has no boundary. Because through this vehicle, reach enlightenment. That's the, I think, fascinating philosophy that Master Cheng Yen taught us. And I cherish this kind of great teaching too. Thank you again. Thank you.